Alright guys, so it's a big day for me. I just took my first commission job in 3 years and the models have just come in. No models or shipping boxes were harmed during the making of this film, except maybe that one in the corner. Alright guys, enough of that. On to the unboxing. Let's get this stuff laid out, and we'll see what we're working with. Copious amounts of tape, always a good sign. Prolific use of bubble wrap, okay, I like that. And here we go, I asked him to send along a couple test models, some of the ones that he had done before. I'm going to be using those to try and match up my paint job with what he already has. Hopefully we'll be able to blend them in a little bit. We'll probably take it a little further though. And here we go, 10 Egyptian Space Marines, ready to fight for the chaotic gods. First off, I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife and do a little bit of cleanup on these models. They weren't too egregious, but there were definitely some mold lines, stuff that I just didn't want showing up in the final presentation. After that, it's over to my old standby Stynylrez Black. I'm going to get a nice base coat onto all these models, and then I'll let them sit for a couple hours to cure. After that, I'm going to come back in with another Stynylrez, this time white, and then I'm going to start my Zenithal Prime from the top. The other thing to note here is that he did send the weapons separate as I requested, and the easiest way to manage these is to just drill and pin into their hand and put a little bit of wire into a piece of cork. Moving over to the paint, I'm using two Pro Acryl colors. I've got Jade and Dark Gray Blue. I'm going to mix 2 parts of Jade to 1 part of Dark Gray Blue, and then I'm going to thin it down a little bit. And this is going to give me my base layer that I'm going to spray all across the model. Once that base layer is down, I'm going to add this bold titanium white into the mixture I already have of the Dark Gray Blue and Jade. This is going to give me another source of a highlight, and this is going to be again on the upper surfaces. Similar to that Zenithal highlight that I did, it's just going to reinforce that, since it was slightly covered up when I laid down the base coat. After that, I rinse my cup out real quick and put in just a little bit of bold titanium white that's been thinned down. This will be focused on an even smaller surface area and just the highlights. You may be thinking to yourself right now that this has gone too far, and it has. But this is actually prepping me for my next step. I'm going to come back in with End Paint Ink, Turquoise. This is a really nice color, and it's very transparent. It's going to lay on almost as a filter. You'll still be able to see all these things underneath, and it'll just give it a really nice, bright, rich color. At this point, by using an airbrush and a wash effectively in that ink, I've got a highlight, midtone, and a shade all on the model pretty quickly and effectively. For the metallics on here, I'm going to be using Pro Acryl Rich Gold. I'll be picking out some points on the weapon as you see here, and I'll also be using it extensively across the Marines since they've got a large amount of trim on them. This is by far the most time-intensive portion of this paint job. It's not hard, it's not difficult, it's just tedious. You don't want to mess up that paint that you've already laid down, because getting back to the exact same gradient after an airbrush and an ink is really difficult. So it really does pay to take a little extra time and a little extra care. From there, we're headed over to the base. I've got some thinned down PVA glue and a mixture of sand and small pebbles. It's going to give me a nice varied texture on the base. It's pretty quick, it's pretty efficient, and it looks good when it's applied at army scale. After that, I'm going to use a miniature paint called Bart. This is from the guys over at Badger Airbrush. I'm going to use a little care to make sure I don't get it on the model itself. I don't want to screw up those gradients like I talked about in the trim section. From there, I'm grabbing some Nuln oil. This is watered down slightly, and I'm going to give the entire model a bath. For the weapons, I'm actually going to use Black Templar instead of Nuln Oil because I do want it to be a darker color. It wound up a little more gray than I was looking for, so an easy way to do that is put this Black Templar down and then come back, wipe it off the top surfaces, exposing that gray paint from underneath, giving it a nice highlighted effect and some gradients as it goes from the top down to the bottom. From there, it's back over to the airbrush. I'm going to use another Minotaur paint. This one is called Rugged Skin, and I'm going to, again, avoid the model, get the base, and just get a little bit of variation and a little bit of tonal shift in that base. From there, I'm grabbing my bright yellow green. This is going to be used for some of the accents on the armor, but mostly for the eyes. These guys' eyes are actually really nice to do. It's a long slit, so I can afford to almost flood that area and then remove any excess that gets on there. Moving over to the staff, I'm going to paint this eye in a little bit of bold titanium white. This stuff has amazing coverage. And while I wait for that to dry, I'm going to go to a very wet dry brush on this flame just to get a little bit of orange into it. And then I'm going to go to a much drier dry brush as I put the white in over top of that. All the attention on this white is focused mainly on the tips. Back over to the base. This time we're going to be using some Agrax Earthshade, and it's going to wash across all the base and get even more definition. This now gives us a highlight and a wash on the model and on the base, giving a great look for tabletop models. As this guy looks like a little bit more of the character, I'm going to give him just a little bit extra love. This comes in the form of a couple additional colors on the staff and detailing out the eye. Not something that's too difficult, but it does add a lot to a single model and makes him stand out a little bit from the pack. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that this step is my favorite, getting that black out and getting these base rims done. If you've enjoyed the video so far, do me a favor, put a thumbs up down there. If you want to see some more, hit that subscribe. And for anybody that's been watching close, let me know what you think is wrong with the sorcerer. There's one thing I noticed when I was painting this guy that was just a little off. Time to line them up for final assembly. I had a little bit of issue with the weapons not sitting in correctly, so I actually had to take an X-Acto knife and cut these arms off. It wasn't a huge deal. It just took a little extra love and a sharp knife, you know? But that's it, guys. That is the first commission I've done in 3 years, and I've really enjoyed it. I like painting for other people. It's fun. I don't have space on my shelves for all this stuff anyway, so yeah, it works both ways. I do hope you've enjoyed this one. If you want to see the next one coming up, that's going to be the Gaunt Summoner of Tzeentch, and that is the prize giveaway for 500 subs. That one's going out to David, and hopefully I'll have that up next week, so stick around, and I will see you guys in the next one.